those two worlds kind of coming together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Awesome, man. 13,000. That's congratulations. That's awesome.
You just got to keep at it.
Dude, I hear you.
It's brick by brick. There's no easy
Yeah,
formula. It's consistency and stamina.
man, I hear that. That's well
The,
said.
the, the
Yeah.
underrated things nobody wants to do, right?
Yeah. It turns out that grit's like the most important characteristic of anything that kind of grows, right? Nothing ever just happens.
I was talking to a soon to be founder yesterday, and he's about to make a jump. And he asked me for advice. I just said, just don't stop. I said, if you don't stop, nothing can stop you, you know? But I was like, there's going to be moments, a lot of them,
Yeah.
where you're going to want to stop. I said, if you don't stop, nothing else will stop you, you know?
Man, that's awesome advice. I can think of I have this. I was at a friend's house years and years ago now, and I met this guy, and he had started a business, and I was like, well, and he had left a pretty good job at a bank, whatever bank he was working at, and I was like, oh, well, how did you know it was like the right time? And he's like, well, I didn't. I just started, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's so awesome. Like it was just so. Yeah, of course. It's like when's the right time to have kids? Well, there's no perfect time. You just do it and you figure it all out. It's so similar, right? Yeah, you just go and keep going. Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I set a deadline for myself. And
Yeah.
later on, I was told, hey, that was a really dumb idea. You shouldn't have set this like deadline. You should do it when you're ready. And I thought,
Yeah.
for me, it worked. It was a commitment device for me
Yeah.
to know I'm going to do this, because you can always procrastinate. So I don't know if I agree with that advice. It was well intentioned. I just don't know if I agree with it.
Yeah. You mean you set a deadline to start, or if it didn't work,
Yeah.
you back to something else?
I did not have a plan B. I purposely
Yeah.
did not create a plan B.
Yeah. I tell people that that's advice I give too, is like if you create a plan B, you'll use it, right? I mean, of course, like that's how human nature works. And you got to burn the boats and just go and figure it out, right? Like failure can't be an option, because people will ask me, well, where have you failed? I'm like, well, we fail all the time, but I don't think of it that way. I think that's just part of the deal, right? Like it's just part of the journey, and you just keep going. You just keep figuring it out until you figure it out, right? So yeah, it's an interesting.
I think in a moment of weakness, plan B sounds pretty good. And if you have a plan B, you'll take it in a moment of weakness, and you're going to have those all the time. So I think you better just not have one,
For
and
sure.
don't let yourself have one, you know?
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. We've jumped into all the good advice. We've front loaded this thing. John, will you tell me a little bit about the origins of PayIt, how you got started? Was it a problem that irritated you, or was it an opportunity you saw, or was it a little bit of both?
Yeah, absolutely both. I'm a Kansas City guy, born and raised Blue Springs High School, Baker University, went to Baker to play soccer, somehow didn't make it professionally into Europe to play soccer, which if you'd seen me play at all, that was not surprising. And went to Cerner, so had built a career in software, had just an awesome experience. And I was the CEO of a software company at the time, and got that postcard in the mail from the state of Missouri that it was time to renew the registration on one of my vehicles, and so hit mo.gov/awful 90s web experience, plugged in pin and plate, and it said invalid, and I just thought, of course, right? Like how on brand is that? I know what a unique identifier should have done for me. And it didn't. And I just thought that's unbelievable. And like everybody else, just found, like made time in my schedule and went to the DMV, and I was sitting there just waiting my turn, and was sort of working on my phone, and just thought, of course, this should be different. It should be smarter, more modern, more convenient, more connected. It turns out more secure. Woof. But like the DMV was just sort of the poster child for what was broken, or might still be broken, about doing business with state and local governments, which is where we spend our time. And it was just like, man, like the triggers were broken. So it was like everything, it was like a piece of paper that came in the mail, and then nobody reads their mail anymore. And And then it was, oh yeah, I got to go do this thing. And then you'd go Google this, whatever it is, link. You'd find a form online somewhere. You'd tell it everything it already knows about you. Then you'd put some credit card data in. You'd punch out to something else. You put card data in, and then you get some PDF that you were supposed to download and print. And we just thought, that's crazy. And then you'd go do it all again the next time. And then think about that across every interaction you have across city, county, and state government, or we all have, right? And just a lot of friction. And we just thought, man, bias towards platforms in the cloud, that are data driven, smart, connected, secure, extensible, scalable, all those things. And boy, we could just build like end-to-end capability that could just say, hey, Justin, it's 30 days till this. Is this still you? Yes. Card on file done. And then drop it into a wallet. And then you could just take all this friction out and then start to collide or connect all these different experiences across city, county, and state. And it would just kind of know you. You'd have a profile, a wallet, and just take friction out and make getting the government you need really easy. And then we would just integrate it into this platform, into the back office of government. And so we thought, hey, we could be this great partner to government who it turns out really just has not great partners to choose from historically. It's a huge market. I mean, when you think about TAM, to the other part of the question, so we saw opportunity, like personal pain that everybody's probably experienced, or maybe even still experiences. Like I have to go to the DMV because I still live in Missouri and they just won't do business with us. It's brutal. It's painful. Anyway, that's probably a topic for another day. And not coffee. But anywho, yeah, there's almost $2 trillion that flows between, constituents and just state and local government, just in the US. So not federal, not international. And it's growing. And we thought, man, if we could build a more modern version of this and just become this really great partner to government to help them reimagine service delivery and help digitize it and do it in a cloud native way, because of course, that's how you should do it, right? That we could really change the way people access their government and just make it simpler. And that sense of mission and purpose is really compelling to me and to all of us and to Mike Plunkett, my co-founder. And anyway, so off we went. And
Yeah.
just
I think your pain point is very relatable. And like you said, the DMV being a poster child for that. Like if you've been to the DMV, you've experienced a pain point. Like it's not if it goes decently well, you're like shocked, So that's kind of where the bar is.
Why would you have to go at all? Like, why should you have to go unless you need a photo? Barring
Right.
needing a photo, there's absolutely no reason yet. Anyway.
Let me give you a use case. I haven't shared this with you before. Let me tell you my experience with this. I'm a Jackson County resident.
Okay.
It works with Jackson County, correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I've experienced the pre-PayIt way to exchange funds, and I've exchanged the PayIt way. And because I'm in Kansas City, I know of you guys. I was aware of that whenever I saw the shift.
Yeah.
So I remember this really clunky experience, too many steps. Sometimes entering stuff and it doesn't recognize. I have to go back and check all this. And
Right.
then I've gone through the PayIt experience, and I remember thinking, wow, this is like current day. This isn't like 1994. And so for me, my initial thought was, this is a great user experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's superior for me, but I had to think, because I'm aware of PayIt, I had to think, I wonder what the value prop is to Jackson County, because I don't think Jackson County cares at all about my user experience that much. I mean, maybe a little bit, but so my guess, let me guess at it. Let me tell me where I'm off. I'm guessing that with a better user experience, probably there's less complaints and less confusion. So probably the customer service part of it, and then probably like back of house efficiencies or maybe some cost savings. That's my guess. You tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think, the reason we, partner with Jackson County is because they have leadership that actually does care, and wanted better efficiency. They care about their residents, and they want to deliver. They saw this as an opportunity to kind of lean in and deliver better service the way we all want to consume it, which is digitally, right? And so the benefits then become a partnership where, we deliver the software, and then like your user experience, none of that by accident. Like we have people that are really good at this, and but it's not like we don't deploy and then like walk away. Deploy, turn it on, and then that's the beginning of this journey where we're constantly using data and talking to humans. It's like human-centered design at scale through the software, and so we think about how do we serve everybody, not just someone as sophisticated as you as a user, but everybody regardless of their digital literacy, because we think technology and that it is like the great inclusion device of our time, right? And so we take it very seriously. Like our mission is to serve everybody, and that's a big audacious goal. And so like the entire company is kind of orchestrated around systems and people that think that way and operate that way. So how do we constantly review process? And we're very data driven. So we can look through workflow, something as simple as like that property tax payment, which can feel mundane. And it's like, we can watch it at scale and go, oh, it's taking too long at this step. Let's go review this. And then we'll make a tweak and figure it out. And then, so benefits to a client, them or anybody else is, one, we help them collect more revenue, which is really powerful to serving their mission, right? So we help them collect that revenue faster. We help them collect more revenue, and then we help with efficiency, cost savings, security, and then help them be, AODA compliant, which is really powerful, right? And then what we want to do too is shift, like we think about accelerating channel shift from walk-in, call-in, or mail-in experiences with government, which are the slowest, most expensive, and least satisfying way to serve that customer and revenue, to these really rich digital long-term relationships. Not even just a transaction. We're very much about these relationships you can build. And we also think then there's this benefit of creating trust, better trust, right? So when you have a great experience, in fact, there's a lot of data on this, that when a resident has a good experience, digitally with their government, they're like 9 times more likely to believe that government is achieving their mission. And then there's some other really powerful things, like when you look across all of our clients, we reduce call volumes 8 to 1 just by having better product. Like nobody wants to call. They only call, it's like a last resort. And so when they've called, you've failed, right? And so we do that. And then we even take first call for a lot of our clients at no cost, just because we're such a believer in the product when you get that product right. Plus, like, just our loops are better, and we'll get more, we're data driven. So we'll, use Zendesk to categorize everything we know. And to us, a call is like the first sign of a product issue. And so how do we constantly work through that and help people? And anyway, so help
Yeah,
our
that's
clients.
interesting.
Yeah.
Let's touch on the accessibility
Yeah.
piece for a little bit, because you just mentioned something that finally clicked with me. So I'm recalling back to whenever I used it to pay something for Jackson County. So it's probably been months. But what I recall was it was very conversational.
Yeah.
And my thought was, oh, they're gearing this. My assumption was they're gearing this for a younger audience who speaks like that. I don't think that now. Now I'm just hearing you speak. It sounds like I recall going to the DMV here recently, and there was somebody, 2 people ahead of me who were in their 70s, and there was an iPad staring at them before they could talk to a person, and they were so intimidated by it.
That's right.
And it was an interface that was not familiar to them. They'd never touched that device in their life. And they got very flustered, and you could just tell, like, that pretty much ruined their day. Like, that interacting with that iPad that was supposed to be easier, and it was easier to a lot of other people in line, but not them.
Right.
And they just could not wait to have a conversation with somebody. So when you just mentioned accessibility on that front, I realized, like, ooh, that probably goes to both younger and older, where people just want to talk about this. They don't need to go study some interface.
Yeah, we've really found out like a couple of things. One, so in our sort of design schema, if you will, you have this dashboard, and that's all about personalization and transparency. How do I surface information and just make it really visible so I know the status of things? Like, I think, not too long ago, I had another Missouri DMV experience where because I travel a lot. I couldn't remember if I'd renewed a registration and just lost the sticker or it didn't come, or if I just forgot to do it. I just couldn't remember. Well, there's no way to look that up. You literally, I had to call and sit online for an hour, or sit on hold for an hour just to know. I mean, like a total failure, right? And so in this case, we think about surface information. So it's just really obvious. I think there's a lot of value in just transparency, and it builds confidence as well. And then we found then as you click in and do things, like the best way, think of it this way. If you were the head of, an agency, and you could just sit down with each resident and go, okay, now, John, I need this. And then what about this? And show me this. And do you have this? And did you do this? It'd be an amazing experience for that resident. It'd be awful for you to try to scale that, but that's really what that UI can do. And that chat experience can do is it sort of demystifies all of this. And it feels like we break it down. You probably noticed too, it's very plain language. It doesn't sound like a lawyer or a bureaucrat wrote it. It is, how do we ingest all that business logic, codes, regs, statutory requirements, and then just lay them out? Look, everybody can text. It's like the most universal way to go back and forth in very plain language, and then ask and answer and kind of guide them. And then we start to learn that user so that it can be just data driven and not have to fill it out, especially then as we add more use cases and kind of scale across or different jurisdictions. We already know you, and we can do, hey, it looks like you're eligible for this, or we did this, or it's time to do that. And we filled most of it out for you, without even telling you that. You just, here it is. We just need you to yes, 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 done. And so it starts to get really powerful.
I think the plain language part is an easy piece to overlook the importance of. I know our team has experienced that with healthcare. We'll check language to make sure it's not above, usually eighth grade a lot of times. People don't talk like a doctor, and people don't talk like a lawyer or a financier. Right. Speak like they talk, so they understand it, right, and they can move forward.
Right. And it's interesting as we've, grown, outside of the US, even revisiting all of that in Ontario for the city of Toronto. Right. And so the team spent a lot of time in market at coffee shops, systematically thinking about user experience and getting all that feedback through tools and things like that. But then also just spending time with users directly. And so, look, not everybody, certainly in our category, does that. They kind of design differently, I guess. And so we found that's a huge advantage in, the outcomes we can deliver for our clients, which is then resonates and helps us grow as well.
I think that's great. It's great to be data centric. It's also good to be human centric. And I think whenever you see things anecdotally, the data starts to make a little bit more sense. Why is that number that way? Oh, now it clicks.
Yeah. You have to be both. And I think you have to be human centered before you're data centered. My own personal view, right? I mean, at the end of the day, these are all just a collection of humans trying to do things. And so when you're mission oriented, I think like the data can support, but anyway.
Yeah. So in the early days, you had this idea, you had a pain point, you thought you had a solution to this, you start implementing this, and then you start talking to some, early candidates of this, whether states or counties.
Yeah.
Which were the ones who were the early adopters of that, where they said, "Ooh, I get it. Like this really hits on a pain point of ours." And they were the ones who were willing to make a change whenever, I'm assuming inertia was probably one of the biggest obstacles at the beginning of this. Is like, it's fine, it's working.
Yeah. In government, you can always do nothing.
Right.
Like you can, right? These are all compulsory services. You'll figure it out because you have to figure out how you pay your parking ticket or to go to the DMV, or like you'll figure it out because you have to. And so, it was hard to get started. Honestly, it's hard to get started in any business. And in this category, like a couple of quick stories. One, I spent some time at this conference when it was just me, and I met 8 governors and kind of just told the story. And I built a little prototype just to kind of show like, hey, here was the big idea. And I remember in 24 hours, I met 8 governors, and all 8 kind of grabbed their senior staffer and said, get John meetings with Commissioner so-and-so or Secretary such and such. And I thought, okay, this could be a real business. And then it took almost 2 years to sign our first contract because they would all say, man, I love this. And I can really see how this would benefit. Come back when you have 5 clients. Well, when everybody says that, it's really hard, right? And then, man, even early days, we were explaining the cloud to state CIOs who would say, there was one who said, I love this, I would do it, but it would have to live in our data center. And I'd be like, well, why? Well, security. And I'm like, oh, no, that's why it can't live in your data center. You can't keep up with Amazon, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so interesting. And then, but we started to find, like, even in this big laggard market, there are early adopters and people who had maybe had some private sector experience and kind of knew what good looked like and had seen software as a service kind of take over every other category. And so, but we had to convince people that it was better for them to partner with someone like us than to just try to build everything themselves. And we still fight that. I mean, it's rapidly crossing the chasm, but it's still the early innings of that, right? So yeah, a lot of scar tissue figuring that out.
Yeah, I assume that's probably the case with all GovTech is getting that early momentum, improving and sort of validating like, hey, this is a proven thing,
Yeah.
is what you have to be able to do because they're not buying on promise. That's just not how they're organized.
Yeah, you need someone to take a chance, and we did, and then we proved it, and then you keep proving it and keep proving it and keep proving it. And then I feel like as you scale up, I think one of the things that's so exciting about where we are today is we're kind of at this kind of like the market is crossing the chasm, cloud first, citizen centric. So kind of all the things that we've been advocating and felt really lonely in early days. Now, like the whole market is trying to get there. And then here we are, sort of this, it's like that nexus of being like this breakout innovator, but also a safe choice because you have these big clients and a lot of scale. And so you can be the safe choice and the innovative choice. And that's really, really powerful, right? And so we're trying really hard to lean into that and, further accelerate. And look, a lot of our goal is just, we want to be a great business, a great company, a great Kansas City company, kind of in the spirit of Ewing Kauffman or Neil Patterson, Cliff Illig, and others, right? And think doing it here matters a lot because I'm sure you've faced this too. It's like there were a lot of people who didn't think you could build a world-class tech company in Kansas City. There's probably still some people who think that, and we've always just thought we'll prove them wrong and be a big part of this ecosystem as a job creator and somebody who just feels like they're a part of the town, right? In the city, and create opportunities for people that maybe wouldn't otherwise exist. And I don't know, that's super rewarding for all of us too.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I could talk all day on that topic.
I'm sure.
The what you said, the nexus between innovator and safe, I think is really interesting. And I think there's a way you frame it where they don't have to live apart. I think a lot of people think innovation and new is scary and risky.
Yeah.
And, stable and safe and big is safe. But I think more and more we're seeing that if you're not innovative, that's the riskiest thing to be. So the people who are pushing the envelope, as long as they're not doing it, you don't have to be on the bleeding edge, but being on the leading edge is a pretty safe place, I would say.
Yeah, we talk all the time. Yeah, there's just this art of the possible is different, right? When you think and are kind of wired differently, like as an organization. And but I also think too, it's like we talk all the time about, yes, we're ambitious and we're a fast grower, but we also never want to outgrow our ability to execute for our clients because that's where it goes wrong, right? And so we think a lot about the things you do matter, but the things you choose not to do, like those choices matter as well. And really trying to get that right. And you don't always get it right, but you have to fix it fast, right? And so, I think those are kind of always the conversations that we have. And, we'll have clients that are saying, like, oh, you're so great at doing these things for us. Could you also do this thing? And it's like, then we have choices to make. Could that become a product? because we don't want to build one-off things. We want to, okay, well, tell us about more about why that matters to you and would it matter to the broader market. And then it's like what they need and then our own view on how you do this. And then kind of figure out where do you, then apply R&D dollars and all those things too. It's also,
Yeah.
it's really fun, right?
Yeah, those are the tough decisions, is where do you set your guardrails and where are you open for opportunities and where you're like, nope, that's just not what we're going to do. I think
Yeah.
the reason you have to do that is because if you're committed to always creating more and more value for your clients, um, you can turn down things that might make you bigger, but the value you create for them actually shrinks in some way. So I think it sounds like that's how you're oriented, is how do we keep creating more value for them? And sometimes that's going to say no to the things that maybe they're requesting, but that would
Yeah,
water
we
down our focus.
of course. Yeah, we say no to things, or we'll say, "Oh, that's really interesting. Tell us more about the problem. We think you ought to solve it this way instead of the way you asked us to solve it. What if we could do that?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, that would be interesting." But yeah, I think our ambition is to be the best partner these clients have ever had. And we think about, like our net promoter score across, which we're kind of helping to introduce into this market. They've, like, a lot of the clients haven't ever thought about an NPS score. And our NPS is just under 70 across all our clients. And that's, you have great people and great process and you work at it and look, things move, right? So it's never just, it's always the feet of the duck paddling really hard underneath. And I don't know, but I think that's a worthy ambition to have, is to be the best partner they've ever had. And you build trust, and that's how you earn the right to do the next thing with them, right?
Yeah. What are some of the misconceptions that you'll run into either with folks on the government side or just other people in the GovTech space? Are there misconceptions that you feel like you're continually running into?
Oh, probably all the time if I thought about it. We're very lean and agile and can deploy things quickly, and that's part of why you build tools in a low code platform, right? And because you take a lot of cost out and risk out, and it's better for the market, because they can just go turn things on and they can be more nimble as a partner to their constituents, and we can support them that way. But it is just totally different from, hey, I've written this spec for software I want you to go build, and instead of like this lean and more agile approach of configuring and turning on, testing and deploying, right? It's like, well, no, I'm going to go away and build for a year and I'll come back and show it to you. And it's just like, so you're kind of working through getting the gears to match up, but that's all changing too. I think it will change. Like, that's the thing, it will happen, and it's happening. So that's what's exciting too, is because, even if it's not us, like, the world would be a better place, because all that's the better way to do it. Right. Of course.
Looking forward to this conversation this morning, I was thinking about the way you probably do implementation with new partners. And I was thinking, I bet their customer success team is really, really key in this, because you're probably going to very different environments every single time, right?
Yeah. And it's better all the time, right? I mean, it's, yes, but I always think, your brand isn't, the great work like Karen and our marketing team does. It's people's experience with your software and your people, right? At the end of the day. And so, of course, we invest heavily in having great software and constantly trying to get that better all the time. But man, we also work really hard to make sure we have really great people. Because that just matters so much, right? To have trustworthy people that are mission oriented and care about our clients and the job they do. Man, that makes a big difference in lots of ways, right? So yeah, that customer success is hugely important, and I think, frankly, a big differentiator for us.
Yeah, I bet. So you talked a little bit about some of the things that you have to say no to. What are the things that you're saying yes to? Like, as you look forward, over the next few years, what are some of the things, the areas where you see yourselves growing? PayIt is in my news feed right now because of an acquisition you guys made. Like, what's on the horizon? What are you guys staying busy on, focused on right now?
Well, growth, of course, right? So delivering our offerings to more and more clients across North America and maybe beyond. There's a lot to do there, and we're excited about that. So we're investing heavily in that. We will continue to invest heavily in R&D, so improvements to products. product market fit isn't a static thing, it's dynamic. You're always working at it. And so we'll continue to press hard on that. And then we'll look for new categories, new kind of adjacent categories in GovTech. We'll always just be a GovTech company. That's a big problem, and we care deeply about doing it. So we'll keep doing that, and we'll keep an eye out for other acquisitions that we think kind of fit our high standard around product and people. But mostly it'll be organic, constantly investing in people and in products and things like that. But that's super exciting. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. This has probably been a wild ride for you. What's been the most rewarding part so far?
Oh, easy. Just the people, the relationships. I'm very much like if I was doing this in my home office, you would just see this wall of people behind me. Uh, you know, um, like the relationships, the friendships with clients and employees and investors and people in media that have covered us, because that's a huge part of this. Quite honestly, it's like the people that have helped shine a light on the category, our business. It helps us find the next great employee or the next great investor or the next great client. So easily the people and those connections, it's just super rewarding and enjoyable.
We've got three types of people that are listening to this that could interact with PayIt. We've got the big bulk of them are residents who,
Yeah.
whether they like it or not, may use PayIt someday. Hopefully they do, because it'll be a nicer experience if they do. You've got people governmental side who potentially could look at you as a partner, but then you have a lot of talent. I mean, as you grow, you're probably constantly keeping an eye on talent. Where would you point people on the talent front to check out PayIt if they were interested in learning more?
Oh man, hit our website, our careers page on the website, and man, I'll also say we really work hard to get a really broad, diverse set of employees in every sense of the word, and man, we're big fans of Launch Code and other programs like that, and finding people that are great problem solvers and share our ambition and commitment to quality and kind of moving the whole category forward and building a great Kansas City business. Although now we have offices in Nashville and Toronto and people in 30 states or something like that. And so it's really been, yeah, it's fun. And boy, I would say, like, we think really hard about how do we build a great company. And part of what I mean by that is where you can attract really talented people who want to invest their time and energy and grow and learn and contribute. And it's a lot of fun. It's really rewarding to watch that happen. And I'll talk to my dad from time to time and think, man, we created a business that I wouldn't even be qualified for some of these roles or a lot of these roles. Like, that's a bit surreal and amazing too. And I don't know, it's fun to learn from the people that come into the company.
Oh man, you're right. It is the best part, and that is awesome. You've got some roles coming in. You're like, man, I couldn't hack it at that role. John, this has been great. I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing the story. I think people will really be interested in it.
Yeah, thanks for having me and doing it. It's awesome, and man, it just it's never, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like just a lot of fun. Not
It
always
means you're
fun.
doing it right. It means you're
Yeah,
doing it right.
well, hopefully.